Veterans 33-1.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The airing of this program by this station is not an endorsement or recommendation by the station of the products or services discussed in the program. The station does not guarantee the results of any investments made by a listener to this program.
The Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush is sponsored by the Word on Wealth Radio Network.
We have Anthony.
This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary is a San Diego financial solutions attorney, protecting people like you. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future. Now, you're live.
Welcome to the Word on Wealth. Happy Thursday, everybody. It's a good day. Today we talk about money here with Anthony Wright. This is Gary Quackenbush on the Word on Wealth. We are going to have lines open today. If you have a question regarding money, regarding your finances, we got Anthony Wright on the line. We're going to take the calls at 888-344-1170. Anthony is a good friend of the show, a good friend of mine. He's the host of Faith-Based Investing. His phone number is awesome, 931-RETIRED. And I highly recommend, if you have any questions about your money, how to make money, what you should be in, how to invest your money, give Anthony a call at 931-RETIRED or go to his website, BibleSafeInvesting.com. Anthony, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Gary, good to be with you, my friend. How in the world are you guys out there in California? You guys doing good and everybody healthy and well?
Everybody is healthy and well, and we've been getting plenty of drizzling. So the ground is saturated. The lawn is green. No, it's been good. It's been good. We have sun comes out and teases us once in a while and reminds us that we are in San Diego, not Washington State, but it's pretty cool. Yeah, it's all good though. How about with you? How are things back there?
Sunny week here in Tennessee. It's been beautiful here. It's been a gorgeous week. We're supposed to get some rain tomorrow night, but been a wonderful week here and looking good all the way around, man.
Nice. Speaking about looking good and not talking about our wives, but what is the market up to now? Are we, tell us kind of in the slang that you hear a lot on, it's a bear market, it's a bull market, it's a black swan, it's a pink flamingo.
I know. You never know what you're going to hear next, right?
That's true.
So that is very true. It's so very true. You know, our market, technically, we are in a bear market. Technically, by definition, that means 3 months, which is a quarter. We have been declined for a total of 3 months. That technically, by definition, puts us in a bear market. You hear people talk about a black swan event. A black swan is basically really, kind of think of the term black swan. It's a rare bird, right?
Uh-huh.
And so that means that something very rare happens in the market. That's called a black swan. So that's why it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, they call it a black swan. So, you know, something catastrophic will happen or something major will happen. And it's not a regular occurrence kind of thing. It just doesn't happen very often. So they call that a black swan. Right now, we're just in the middle of, we've got caught in the middle of the Feds raising the interest rates, and they've raised them so fast that, you know, bonds, like I had mentioned to you, you know, once before, you know, when rates are high, bonds die.
Mm-hmm.
When rates are low, bonds grow. So that's all people have to remember. And if interest rates are going up, stay away from bonds. Well, these banks put their money in bonds, and so then they go to get their money and it isn't there. You know, you put $300 billion in bonds. Now interest rates have gone up. There's no telling how many times the Fed has raised the interest rates. So now $300 billion in bonds is only worth about $250 billion in bonds, and so people can't get their money out from the bank. And so what does the bank do? They declare themselves insolvent. They call the FDIC. And then the FDIC and the government and everybody gets involved and starts bailing them out. So that's what we're involved in right now. But I got to tell you, I'm a very optimistic person.
Mm-hmm.
great time for some deals. There's instances, Gary, where companies are just too big to fail. And what I mean by that is take the airlines, take Delta Airlines, take American Airlines, United Airlines, Southwest Airlines, just whatever airlines you want to take. If that company went completely under tomorrow and it left hundreds of thousands of stranded U.S. citizens, can you imagine the national catastrophe? That's called being too big to fail.
Got it.
Well, these banks, two of them or three of them are very large banks, and they're just Credit Suisse is just simply too big to fail. They're just not going to fail. The government isn't going to let them fail. They're going to bail them out. They'll give them however much money they need to bail them out, and they're going to continue to bail them out because they're too big to fail. So about 6 months ago, their stock was running $68, almost $70 a share. Today, you can buy that stock for $2.
Oh my gosh.
So you tell me 68, $2, man, that's a bargain. See, that's what you got to be in a position to buy. I had a very wise mentor tell me one time, one of my mentors, he said, don't pray for opportunities. Opportunities will come. Pray that you're able to take advantage of the opportunities when they come.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly true. It's like when things happen, like, I don't know, the example that I think of when you say that immediately is like all of a sudden when the market starts to drop or just prices are dropping and car prices are dropping, everything like that. And you have all these things that are becoming less and less expensive because the market is in trouble. And then you're in trouble too. It's like, oh, you can't take advantage of it. But if you are financially safe and sound, when the market stumbles or something happens and a value drops, then you have the money to actually take advantage of that.
That's
and it's
right.
like, yeah, when it's always been exciting. Like when we get into we're headed towards a recessionary period where, people are they're not able to spend as much and there's not as much discretionary income. So prices start to come down and you start to see things going on sale. And it's like, it's nice to be in a position to say, oh, okay, I can take advantage of that. It's kind of like the products that flooded the market during the pandemic. I mean, like, this is a really funny example, but like mountain bikes during the pandemic, people realized that outdoors was good. And they actually had time. And the mountain biking industry literally exploded. There were companies that opened overnight, and these guys were working round the clock. I bought a mountain bike, a really nice one, early in the pandemic, and probably at mid-pandemic. And they were just not available. You had to pay a premium. These shops were, were selling these bikes that were not even in their inventory. The manufacturers would sell them. Sell them to the bike shops. The bike shops would jack the price up. And so everybody started building bikes for the last 2 years. They've been building like crazy. Now you can get the same bikes for 50% because there's too much inventory. And I see that with,
1 minute.
But if you have the money now to take advantage of that, as long as you weren't in the bike industry yourself, you can take advantage of it. So I see what you're saying about if you're in a position where you have a good financial advisor and you have your portfolio set up where you can afford now, oh, that's a bargain. I got this money over here in my little slush fund. Let's go ahead and invest in these type of things. So I think, Anthony, when we come back, I've got some questions for you specifically about, how kind of to work things in investment portfolios in this time also. So I wanted to get into that a little bit with you when we come back. You guys, we are on the in studio here with Anthony Wright. 931 retired is his number. He knows what he's doing. He's a great guy, very personable. Got an incredible team there with his Bible Safe Investing. He is the president and founder of Retirement Specialty Group. So the only number you need to remember with your retirement funds, your investments is 931 retired. 931 retired. You can also go to his website, BibleSafeInvesting.com, and get his free book. We'll be back in just a moment with Anthony Wright.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We're here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com. 855-500-TRUST.
You're saving and investing for the future, and that's good. Have you ever stopped to think, where does my money actually go? This is faith-based investing with Anthony Wright.
Most Christian families don't understand this one thing. The money that you're saving for retirement helps fund the abortion industry as well as other liberal anti-family causes. It's the sad, dirty little secret of American investing world. And here's the good news, though. You probably also didn't know that just a few minutes of your time and we'll screen and clean your investments for you. There's no cost, no obligation. Learn the truth about your own investment mix. Then the choice is yours. Remember, the word says when God's money is in the hands of the righteous, the people rejoice. Well, we also are fiduciary investment advisor representatives. That means that our firm makes a pledge to always act in your best interest. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com. Download a free copy of my book, Faith-Based Investing, or call me at 931-RETIRED. And please don't forget, listen to Faith-Based Investing this weekend right here on Family Talk.
Gary, our listeners are asking about trust disputes, whether or not they'll actually get the inheritance they're expecting.
I think that's a scary thing for most people because they feel like, if I ask my successor trustee, hey, where's my inheritance? You kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being like rude or whatever, inconsiderate. But I'm telling you, if time goes on, if it's been like 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, that's too long to have heard nothing. You're supposed to hear fairly soon, like within a couple of months after someone's passed, you should be hearing from that successor trustee. And if you're not, I think there's an issue we need to address. So it's not like we're going to go screaming in there, filing lawsuits. We kind of use gentle nudges like, hey, do you know what you're doing? Successor trustee, we kind of want to help you do your job, and we help beneficiaries kind of get things straightened out.
Call or click to request your free initial consultation. gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST, gqlaw.com.
You're not alone. Ask for the legal help you need. Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free consultation or to talk with a member of the GQ team. That's gqlaw.com, 855.
You're live.
Here you are at the Word on Wealth. We've got lines open to ask Anthony Wright your questions. It's 888-344-1170, 888-344-1170. We'd love to have you answer a question. You're not going to be able to stump him, but you can certainly ask any question you want regarding your money, your investments. Anthony, my question is, I've just noticed that a lot of people are really, right now, they're really kind of nervous. To them, the market is shaky. They're nervous about getting in the market. Either sitting there in cash or, I've talked to a couple people in the last several days that had, $250,000 just sitting in a savings account, still an account. It wasn't in a CD. It was just sitting in an account that was earning 0.01%. And they're just like, I'm not getting into the market. I need to save this money. This is all I've got. I don't want to lose my $250,000. and they're super nervous about it. But I wanted you to address like that kind of concern and tell us, how are your clients doing today? They're in the Bible safe investing, the faith-based investing. So how are your clients doing? And is it really, should we be really nervous about getting into the market now?
Well, it's kind of one of those things. It's a really, really good question. It's one of those things that's kind of hard to advise people till you sit down with them, Gary, and kind of get to know what the risk score is.
Oh, come on, Anthony. Let's just pretend like you could read everybody's mind this listening. I know it's a good question. It's super unfair. Anyway, so and I know, and listeners, this is not scripted. You can tell Anthony's good about answering questions. So I'm really trying to get an idea, just like what in general what's going on. Because I would say probably the numbers in the last month that I've been seeing are savings accounts that are close to the FDIC limit. Believe it or not, I've seen them in probably like 6 or 8 different people in the last couple of weeks that they've got, savings near $250,000, and they're going, I'm not risking this. I'm not putting it in the market. I said, it's going backwards because of inflation and it's not earning any money. And they're just like paralyzed. So talk to that for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, you're 100% spot on here. I mean, there's a lot of accounts. I mean, there's a lot of business accounts that have more than the 250,000 minimum in there, right? So, I mean, more than the $250,000 guarantee. So, they're getting concerned as well. So look, everybody has a right to be concerned, and everybody has a reason to be, but the main thing is keep the main thing the main thing. Well, what is that? Well, God don't give us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So you start there. So you don't get into fear. Okay. The next thing is it very wise to put 250 grand or 300 grand and just let it sit there in cash, earning basically nothing? Well, depends on what you're wanting to do. If you're going to buy a house with that cash in the next 3 to 4 weeks, then you keep it in cash. If it's money that you're really not going to do anything with, you don't have immediate plans to buy a house, buy a car, if that really truly is just investment money, then you got to think long term, right? Investing is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So you got to think marathon mentality. You pace yourself. If you can go in and buy bank stock at $2 a share that 3 months ago was $68 a share, it doesn't take rocket science, and it doesn't take a genius to tell you that when the government pumps a bunch of money in them and they get back on solid ground, they're going to return right back to $68 a share. Now, in order to take advantage of that, you got to be in the market. So, it's kind of one of those things like you can't win the lottery unless you buy a ticket, right?
Right.
So everybody wants this huge gain, but they don't want any risk. Well, investing is all about risk versus reward. The more risk you take, the higher the reward you're going to get. So if you don't want the risk, that's okay. I understand that as a registered investment advisor. I understand that. And there's nothing wrong with saying I don't want the risk, but you just have to understand if you're not going to take the risk, what are you going to get? 0.05 sitting in your savings account. So, it's one of those things that really, Gary, it's kind of a personal type thing, right? If you need the money and you need to get to it right away, don't invest it. But if you really can go for the long haul, right now is a great time. It is a fantastic time to go ahead and jump in and go ahead and buy some of these deals. And then 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you're going to be thrilled you did, because when your $2 stock is worth 68 again, oh my stars, are you going to be smiling from ear to ear?
And this is the type of thing, the way you're explaining it, it's very straightforward. But it's something I don't think anybody should be doing on their own. I do talk to a lot of people that are, managing their own investments, and I kind of go, okay, that's, that's one way to do it. But I mean, we're talking about getting more sophisticated, like Anthony, like you're saying, meeting with the people and figuring out what their how much could they afford to lose and how much do they want to win and gain on this thing. But this is the kind of thing, listeners, that you call Anthony and ask him about that to get into these. His number is 931 retired, RETIRED, retired. And we're getting some strategies from him. I am picking his brain pretty deeply here. It could give us some of his ideas and thoughts on how this kind of stuff works. He's got some very, very happy clients that help that just appreciate the fact that he knows this much. Anthony lives, eats, and breathes this stuff. And then when he's not on the radio and TV, he's out there figuring this kind of stuff out with his team. So now, Anthony, a little bit more on, I've heard people say, well, if, I like the idea of a faith-based investment so that, but the big companies are making all the money. And as we have all heard, and we all know, some of the big companies like Facebook, Apple, and Google, yeah, they're neat companies, but the stuff they invest their money in it's not conducive with people of faith. They're buying things and spending things and supporting causes that we would never be caught dead supporting. So if we're going to say, okay, we're not going to invest with those big companies, doesn't that harm our portfolio? Doesn't mean the big hitters are not in our portfolio, so we're going to end up not being successful. Talk to that.
That's a great question. It's a great point. And I'm glad you brought that up because people ask that all the time. And the truth and the reality is there's just as many. In fact, there's about 90% of the stocks that are traded on the open stock exchange pass the faith-based investing screening. Oh, wow. And so there's a lot of big companies out there that make a lot more money. They pay great dividends. But it's just that everybody likes the hype, right? They like the hype of the FANG, FANG, FAANG. They just like that hype. They like to say, I own Apple, or I own Facebook, or I own Google, or, they just like that, or Netflix, they like to say that. But the truth and the reality is they move a lot. Anytime you've got a lot of volume going on in a stock, you're going to have a lot of movement. So there's a lot of times you'll be watching, Bloomberg, or you'll be watching, whatever channel, CNBC, whatever you're watching your investments in, and you'll see the market drops. But over on the faith-based side, we really haven't dropped that much because we're not in those stocks. That FANG is what moves that S&P 500. That's what moves that Dow Jones needle up and down. So we're not even involved in those. So we actually do better and make a better return. And some of these companies are big name companies. And when people get their statement and we've moved them and we've cleaned them up, and now we've got them in good faith-based companies, every single time I talk to them, they say, wow, I didn't realize they were a faith-based company. I do business there all the time. So there's a lot of really good companies out there that have great earnings. They're paying great dividends, and they do way better than the top 5 FANG anyway. They just outpace them, and they do much, much better. And you're not funding things like abortion and anti-family garbage, and you're not getting involved in any of that stuff. You're staying clean, and you're investing with your morals.
Would you tell us, if you have one, do you have like a couple of favorite stocks?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. One of them is and they're clean. They pass our investments, but one of them is Domino's Pizza.
Oh, nice.
Tell me that's not a household name.
That's terrific.
They're fantastic. It doesn't matter what the economy does. It doesn't matter what if the economy's good or bad. People order pizza to be delivered, and especially during their basketball game, their football game, their hockey game, whatever sports they're watching. Domino's is a really good stock right now, and a second one is Costco. Those two are the top 2 that generally surprise everybody.
Yeah.
They go, holy smokes, I didn't know Costco. I just shopped there yesterday. I didn't realize they were, past the faith-based screener. Or, wow, I just ordered Domino's over the weekend. So it's companies like that do the right thing with the money. And we just make sure that they're not doing unethical things that go against our conscience. That's all. It's really, we're just like any other registered investment firm. And we invest your money. We do it fiduciarily, and
2 minutes.
Have CFPs on board that write certified financial plans if that's what you're looking for. But every single thing we do revolves around faith-based, or another term would be Bible-safe investing. Make sure that biblically you're safe and your conscience is clean. You're putting your money in the right things.
Now, how is it that a company like yours, it's just, you know, so much information, you have that. Is that just because you spend so much time researching this? This is kind of like your thing. Is that why you know so much about this stuff?
Yeah. Plus I've been doing it 15 years. And so, you know, with 15 years of experience, there's not really anything that I haven't seen. There's not really anything new. It's all the same stuff. Sometimes they package it up a little different. Sometimes they'll use different terms. Being an investment advisor is kind of like being an attorney. We have our own language that we talk, but yet the common people most of the time don't understand it. And
not a minute.
You're an attorney. You know, sometimes you get in court, you'll drop words like depositions, and people go, "What?" Well, all that means is you want to sit down and ask them a bunch of questions, right?
Oh, don't make it sound so simple, Anthony.
What's that other one you use? Interrogatories.
Interrogatories. Yeah, I'm going to interrogatorize you. Oh, you're going to ask me questions on paper. Okay.
In our world, people will say, "Well, what's your yield on that investment?" And the common person goes, "What? What's your yield?
Yield.
What's your interest?" It's just a fancy word for interest.
I love it.
So if you ever hear yield, what's your yield? Or you'll hear delta.
Right. What's the delta?
What's the delta?
What's the delta?
Yeah.
What's my ROI? I don't know if the yield on that's good enough. I need a deeper ROI and a yield.
ROI.
Because there's a green swan coming.
Yeah,
all right.
exactly.
15 seconds.
That's right.
It's good to be with you today.
Good to be with you too. 931 retired. 931 retired. Go to BibleSafeInvesting.com and get Anthony's free book. Hey, brother. Talk to you soon, man. Bible Safe
Talk to you,
Investing.
pal. Have a great one.
All righty. Bye-bye.
You've got questions. We've got answers. This is the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush of GQ Law. Gary's here to give you peace of mind with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary to build, protect, and transfer your wealth. 855-500-TRUST. GQlaw.com.
Well, wasn't that fun? I always like talking to Anthony Wright. He's such a good guy. He's a lot of fun. I just, I don't know. He's a good guy. And as far as investments and talking about investments, you get little tips like that. And you go, hey, that sounds like a tip from Anthony. And oh yeah, it is, man. I think, acting on Anthony's tips is a great idea. If you have the ability, the capacity to do it, I think it's always a great idea to, if you, and I'm not, I don't have a license for this stuff. I mean, I have my own investments and all that, but it's not something, I don't do this for a living. That's why we have Anthony. If you have questions on stocks, do not ask me. Do not ask me. Ask Anthony, 931 retired. He has a free book on his website. If you go to his website, BibleSafeInvesting.com, it's a website put up by the Retirement Specialty Group. And he has a free book on Bible Safe Investing. We did a seminar and I had somebody ask me, said, well, Bible Safe, why would you get religion tied up with your investments and with your money? And my answer to them was, well, if you're religious and you believe in God and Jesus Christ, then that should be in every decision that you make. Yeah, including business. And yeah, do they care about business? Absolutely. The world revolves around, finances and money and faith. And I think, yes, they are together and they're inseparable, in my opinion. So yes, 931 retired. Talk to Anthony, get your investments right, straighten it out. And I've asked him before, I didn't ask him today. Is he going to really push you to say, hey, send over all your money? He says, no, absolutely not. In fact, I've asked him, I said, what about it? $50,000. Could you do something with that? And he was absolutely, which to me was terrific because some companies, if it's going to be under management, they don't want you unless you're $1 million or something like that. And that I think is kind of, I don't know. I guess that's for some people, but not for me. So there you go. I'm grateful to be along here on the show with you guys today. We are opening the lines up, 888-344-1170. It's 888-344-1170. And I want you to call and ask if you have any questions. Estate planning questions. That's what I'm talking about now. Okay. Interesting. I want to talk about DNA. And this just came up a couple times today. I was talking to some members of my team and we started talking about DNA. And it's one of those things where you hear about it, it's in, some attorney thing and some trial or whatever in DNA. But, I wonder if you would ever think that a guy like me, I'm doing wills and trusts and stuff like that. Would I ever get involved with DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid? So the way DNA works, DNA is a way to determine if you're related to somebody. And the way they take DNA samples is very interesting. So let me give you some examples of when that kind of thing happens. And one would be if you're trying to prove paternity, like let's say it's a guardian petition. So you would be a guardianship petition, and somebody would be petitioning to become like the guardian of a child, and because we end up dealing with that kind of stuff. So okay, so if you're doing a guardianship petition and doing that kind of stuff with guardianship, sometimes you have to. I'm sorry, I'm really distracted. So let me do this. So let's say you filed a petition for guardianship, which is to take care of a minor child. If you are a parent and you are no longer on this planet because you passed away, you have to leave your children with a guardian, because if they're under 18, they have to have a guardian assigned to them. Okay, so the situation would be parents have passed away, and now somebody's going to petition for guardianship. And the person that petitions is like, let's say it would be a grandma wants to get guardianship of the child, and because the daughter had passed away, and now they're trying to figure out what to do with this child. So grandma does a petition for guardianship. That's the way it works. It's in probate court. It's a petition. You have to notify, you have to notify family members. And what happens sometimes is somebody will come in and say, I want to be the guardian. Or in a case that we were representing, it was like, I'm the father. And in the petition, we didn't we didn't think the father even existed. In fact, there was no father on the birth certificate. So we were really hesitant, what are we going to do? Say, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. This kid has a father. And so here you go. But because the child was being taken care of by grandma for a very, very long time, and the father, apparently this person that was alleging it, wasn't even in the picture. So what happened is they ended up, they got ordered by the court, because we said, well, we want proof. We're not going to, he's not on the birth certificate. And, there's really no proof. He's just saying that he is. And part of that was interesting, because if somebody's coming in and saying, I'm the father, well, that means if they are established to be the father, whether they had guardianship or not, if they're established to be the father, they're going to have to pay child support. So, my thinking was like, well, he either really is, or he wants to pay child support really bad, because if we prove that he is and he's not taking care of the child, then he's going to pay child support. Well, instead he came in and said, I'm the father, I'm going to take care of the child. And we did a DNA test, and the DNA test came out that yes, that was his child. He was the father. And then the court at that point really doesn't have a choice, because there's a father, and the father will trump the guardian. Okay, the person that's petitioned for guardian, if it's a grandparent or sister or or an aunt or an uncle or something like that, then usually the court will just say, well, there's a parent here, unless you can show that this parent is like completely, this incapable, even functioning enough to take care of themselves. A lot of times the court is going to say, well, he's the parent, he proved it. He's either going to have to be the guard, take the child and be not their guardian, but their parent, or he's going to have to pay child support. So it's like he's coming into court saying, I'm either going to get the child or I'm going to have to pay support. And we ended up, he proved, first of all, he proved he was a good guy. And then he proved that it was his child with the DNA. And so then he had to go later and, change the birth certificate and all that kind of thing. But it was pretty cool in a way, but it was how the DNA resolved it. And I thought it was pretty cool how it worked. It was pretty cool that the guy came in and kind of owned up. So I thought that was good. So we do guardianship petitions. That has to happen. If you don't have a guardian designation for your children, if they're under 18, you need to get one. And that is, it usually goes in part of a will. So like a regular will, typically would have a guardianship designation in that. Other than that, there is a guardian designation that is completely independent of any document. It's a standalone document. And I call it a nomination of guardian. My website, gqlaw.com, has them for free. And you can go on the website and there's a tab that says free stuff. And on the free stuff tab, you click on the tab that says nomination of guardian. That's a form that I'm not taking any responsibility for it. I know that it works. You just download it. It's a PDF. You print it out and you fill it in by hand and you sign it. And if you can have it witnessed, that would be great. But what you're doing is that document, before you go out on a fancy date or before you go anywhere and you're thinking there is this absolutely remote possibility that you might need a guardian, like as in your children would need a guardian because you passed away. So don't travel in exciting locations. Don't go overseas. Don't get on a plane, don't get on the freeway, but you got to make sure that you designate a guardian for your minor children. Okay. So that's a DNA thing. Another DNA one, which I thought was really fascinating. We've had a bunch. But the other one that's really fascinating is trying to figure out who somebody's parent was. Okay, so the person had died and a child was coming in and saying, that was my father and I get to inherit from him. And there were other people that are saying, no, that is not your father. You're not our brother. And so you cannot inherit from him. What the brother ended up doing was going and getting enough information to prove that the deceased person was his father. That was DNA. So the DNA check, they go and they do a swab of the inside of your cheek, of his cheek, his sister's cheek, his kids, any close relatives. And the DNA, I don't know how they do it. It's pretty incredible. But the DNA people, figure out all these family relationships and they test the DNA and they can determine whether that person was a parent or a child. They can do that because of the way that there's DNA markers and all the stuff they do. It's pretty amazing what they do. But when they do that, they determine whether that person is the father or not. Okay, back to my case. So the son was saying, that's my dad and I get to inherit from him. And the other children that came in said, "You're not our brother. You're not even our stepbrother. You have nothing to do with us. And this is our father." We ended up getting a DNA test and found out that the people that were petitioning, it was actually true. He wasn't their father. Problem is, this guy had pictures going back like 40 plus years with this man that came and said, "I am your father." Not like Star Wars, that type of thing. "I am your father," but "I'm your father." They built a relationship. They spent literally the next 40 years. The guy he had his own family, his spouse, and they, for 40 years, treated this guy and said he was, and the guy acknowledged and said he was their grandpa for those 40 years. But when he died, it was determined later that that actually wasn't his child. Okay, that wasn't the deceased guy was not the father of the one that was trying to get the money, even though he thought he was for the last 40 years. But that didn't matter. What mattered was the DNA. So sometimes DNA will trip you up, and sometimes it's okay. Questions on this, call me at 855-500-TRUST, 855-500-TRUST. Let me put together your power of attorney, your designation of guardian. We'll be back in just a second on the Word on Wealth.
You don't need to know everything. You just need to know where to find answers you can trust when you need them. Welcome to the Word on Wealth with Gary Quackenbush. We are here to help you build, protect, and transfer everything you've worked hard for with expert estate planning, trust administration, inheritance, and probate. Call Gary and the team at gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
Gary, how do you and your team help our listeners avoid probate?
Well, first of all, probate is a process that involves attorneys, judges, and sometimes contesting parties. And so we try to avoid probate at pretty much all costs. The way we do that is setting up living trusts, setting up properly documented wills, putting the property like houses, cars, bank accounts in that trust so that it avoids probate. Probate is only necessary if the estate plan isn't set up quite right. So we help them get it set up right. And mainly that's done through a properly created living trust.
Call Gary and the team at GQ Law, 855-500-TRUST, or go online and download Gary's free ebooks and videos. Read Gary's blogs. Call or click to request your free initial consultation. That's gqlaw.com, 855-500-TRUST.
The answer.
$500-TRUST.
All right, welcome to Word on Wealth. This is Gary Quackenbush. All right, we're going to the top of the hour here, folks. I've got lines open, 888-344-1170. If you have questions for me on estate planning, on questions with estates, inheritances, probates, we're working on that right to the top of the hour to help you get some of this information. The goal here is education. The goal here is answering your questions. So if you've got one specifically, let me know, 888-344-1170. Another DNA one that we ended up with was trying to determine who beneficiaries were, because sometimes a child will come in and they'll come into a probate and say, yeah, that person is my father. And sometimes we'll have to do DNA testing But if you think about DNA testing, it is very interesting. They don't go to the deceased person and get their DNA. Instead, they go to family members all around them, so they can track. They can take DNA from the deceased person's siblings, like brother and sister. They can take from the deceased person's like aunts and uncles if they're surviving, or parents. And then so they do it, and they have this way of just figuring all out, like who's who, which is, I think, is pretty incredible. It's interesting to figure all that stuff out. Kind of along the lines with this is what happens, a big question here. What happens if you, when you're trying to figure out who gets money in a trust? Like, let's say, for example, you have a situation where the estate plan says, when I die, I want all my property to go to my children. And one of the children is just cannot be found. So the brother is in here saying, look, we have not talked to my brother for probably 15 years. We don't know where he is. Sometimes he surfaces and he contacts us, or he surfaces in some way with a piece of mail or a postcard or whatever, but we really don't know where he is. So we're assuming he's dead. Well, the probate court needs to know that he has been notified, because he gets a copy of the probate petition, the petition that says that there's going to be money that's going to be administered through the probate court, and the court wants to make sure that everybody is notified that's required. I mean, siblings, children, that's a no-brainer. The children have to be notified. So we couldn't find this guy. We filed the petition. The court said, I'm going to dismiss your petition unless you can serve this guy. So we hire a private investigator. They look around. We give them a social security number. They think they try to find him. They're making phone call after phone call. They're doing visits. These private investigating people to find missing persons they're incredible. It's really cool. So they end up tracking down, and they said, we think we know where he is. But when we went there to approach, they told us to go away. And that's because he was living in a shelter, and the shelters are told they're not allowed to disclose anybody that's in their shelter. So what we were trying to do is convince them that they should let us at least know if he was there, because he was going to inherit some money, which should be a really good motivation. Well, the shelter was very good about saying, absolutely not. We can't even say if the person is here. We can't even acknowledge. We can't say whether he is or he isn't. We don't know. We can't say one way or the other. So that was kind of a little troubling. It wouldn't do any good to do any DNA. The beneficiary is lost. And so that kind of answers the question on what if a beneficiary is lost. If they're lost, the money, the potential is that the judge will let you finish up the probate, but you're going to have to put that beneficiary's share into a blocked account, and it's going to have to sit there. And if it's there long enough, then it's cheat, which means go to it's going to go to the state of California. It's going to sit there until that person claims that money. It'll sit there for a very, very long time. So you have to know where the beneficiaries are. If somebody's specifically disinherited, that might be a little bit different story. But anybody that's listed in the trust, anybody that's a natural heir, children, parents, they all have to be notified of this. And if they're not notified properly and they don't know, then you can't complete the distribution, and the probate court will never allow it, because they want to make sure all the heirs are contacted, so that there's no question that when the judge makes that order, it's going to be the final order on where that stuff goes. So super important. We had a situation where I believe it's a piece of jewelry. It was like a ring. And we had to find an heir, and it was just a person. Actually, it wasn't an heir. So it was a person was listed in the guy's trust, and it said, I want my ruby ring to go to this person's name. I can't remember her name, but it was just one of these things I always remember is like, and we didn't know what to do, because that person, it was a specific distribution. So we had to notify that person there was this ring. We hired a private investigator. They looked around. They found out where she used to live. They kept talking to, next place. Found out that she could probably found out where she worked. That's what it was. Yeah, found out where she used to work. Called to work. I said, "Oh, she moved to like Kentucky." Then they ended up tracking her down in Kentucky, found out who she was, found out the relationship between this person and the deceased person, and she proved who she was, which is always kind of funny for somebody like, hey, we have money for you, just give us your driver's license. But she did, she cooperated, and then the money got sent to her. But that was one of those things it had to be, she had to be found. Okay. And she didn't want the ring, she wanted the money, which is fine. She just said, I don't have any use for a ring. I don't wear rings, but if he left it to me, and they identified him, and yes, that was the lost beneficiary that was no longer lost. And that makes it so that you can continue on with the trust work. But if you don't have a beneficiary, if somebody's gone, if you can't prove that they're dead, the judge is going to assume they're alive and they're just not listening. So the money's, you can't just divide the money up and say, nobody will notice. Potentially that's true. No humans might notice, but you just don't want to do that. That's not what the law allows you to do. So make the distributions like you're supposed to. And you have to go to probate court, go to probate court. If you don't have to go to probate court, great. That means you had an estate plan that was done right, and that'll probably keep you out of probate court. Okay. Another fun situation that we had, these are kind of like estate planning gone wrong. Estate planning gone wrong. So the other one was a person had got some software, downloaded some software, and was answering the questions, and didn't understand that when they're talking about the trustee, he didn't understand the difference between the initial trustee, which is So he basically didn't understand what was going on. So we ended up helping out and trying to kind of get things straightened out. But I think, I don't know, sometimes I just really think that people struggle to try to figure out what they're doing, and they try to do it on their own, and they need to get somebody like me. And I'm always happy to do it. If you have questions on this stuff, you can call me at 855-500-TRUST. Come to our office, ask me some questions. We're good about getting a team together where we can find your people and make sure they all get their notifications. If they're not entitled to any money, they're going to get notified. They're not going to get any money, because you want to get all those things resolved while you are in the beginning of it. Because if you wait until a year or 2 years or 3 years from now, some of the beneficiaries may have moved, they may have passed, they may have a different family situation, they may have changed their name, who knows? But those are the things, this is one of the things you just kind of get on and get it done. The other thing I wanted to bring up to you was one last little point today. And that is, if you're worried about trying to get money to beneficiaries, long lost beneficiaries, make sure there's a dollar amount, because a dollar amount is way easier to take care of than a percentage. If you say, 1% of the estate, then that's going to require the entire estate gets accounted for. So if you're going to do small stuff, keep it small. And if you give them $20, that's not the end of the world. It kind of, so there you go. All right. I wanted to thank you for being here today. And you've got coming up on Fridays. Remember, we have our Finding Joy Fridays, which is this Friday and next. The next Friday is going to be Good Friday, which is super awesome. That's how I'm going to find my joy. I'm going to be finding joy in Easter, which everybody in the Salem stations do, which is super cool. We got that's tomorrow. Then Monday, we're going to bring Jim Robeson, the Medicare Answer guy, is coming back on Monday, which I'm super excited about. Tuesday, we got a mortgage guy named Gary. Yes, that's right. And I've got Ken Pecos on Wednesdays. I got Anthony Wright on Thursdays. We're trying to keep a really good lineup for you guys, so you have a place to go to ask your questions. We're trying to provide that information. One thing that I have done that I think is really important for you to remember is I have a website, and it's gqlaw.com. So GQ, like my initials, Gary Quackenbush, law, because I'm a lawyer, LAW, gqlaw.com. And you can find things. There's a tab on there that says free stuff, and you can get your guardian, the nomination of guardian form there. You can find some important forms that might help you out, some videos to talk you through stuff. The other thing is,
1 minute.
On my website, I've got 3 different books that are for free. One is Living Trust Basics, talks about living trust. It's an easy book to read. It's really it's really an outline. It's not it's like a fleshed out outline, way easier to read than a book, because you're trying to just get information. I got that one. I have a book that talks about the difference between corporations, partnerships, and limited liability companies, LLCs. It's a really good one to figure out. Maybe do you want to be a corporation or LLC? We can help you with that. And the other one is the tax bankruptcy, tax problem solving at its finest, with the added ability to maybe get rid of your taxes if you filed a bankruptcy. Those are all things we do here at GQ Law. It's been good to have you along. Happy Thursday. This is Gary Quackenbush signing off, GQ Law, from the Word on Wealth, and we'll be talking to you guys in the next couple of days. Have a great one.
Tell a friend about the Word on Wealth, featured since 1995, with financial solutions attorney Gary Quackenbush, an expert in estate planning, wills and trusts, and tax problem solving. Gary is past president of the California Society of Tax Consultants. Reach out to us. The Word on Wealth team of financial experts is here to answer your questions and help preserve your family's financial future.
The information you hear on the Word on Wealth is for general information purposes only. This program discusses general financial and legal topics. Seek legal advice from a competent lawyer for your individual legal needs. The opinion